Today's Chaburah discusses the status of corporations, limited liability, and there are two positions that I want to talk about and not accept. So to follow the tradition of Beis Hillel, to be makdim, the opposing view, we'll begin with the Sefer Michas Osher by one of the great rabbis of our time. Just spent a little time with him. I think Rabbi Black spent a little more time with him a couple of weeks ago in Seminole. Hardly. Okay, there were 1,000 people there, so it's hard to find him. Anyway,
I did hear with mine. I've got the context. He referred to a Schechter. It says Yedidi Neman Professional Schechter.
That's a good thing. Okay. Anyway, let's begin by quoting his piece, which is the most recent. This is from his first volume. It comes from Tavshin Samach Dalet. It's more than 20 years old. And he's trying to establish a certain position which others have espoused, but he, does a more extensive job, you might say. And we'll see what he does and see if we can possibly say something a little bit different. But, with proper respect for everybody. Let's go. He's talking about buying a bank. You're lending money to Jews. So he says, what does it mean, a chevra? Very fundamental. What is a chevra? What does it mean? So who is a bailim? Usually bailis means three things. You have the money, you get the profit. 2, you decide how the company should work. And 3, you can sell it. And these things, the 3 are divided into 3. The shareholders, the directors, and what he calls the mankal, the guy who's actually sitting there with the keys. Okay, let's take a look. The shareholders, they own the money. They get dividends. And if the company splits up, it belongs to them, indicating that they really are, to some extent, in control. On the other hand, the Nil HaShoteif, he says it's the mankal, whoever the people who are actually running the business. The directors, of course, appoint the mankal and other people. They decide the mediniyut haklalit shel hachevra, and what they're selling, what they're buying, splitting up the company goes back to the shareholders. So the ma'afyanim, that's a modern Hebrew word, the characteristics that define something are divided into 3. One more thing is the fact that, of course, there's no personal liability. That's how we understand it. Okay. So he quotes the modern chok. It's a separate entity, right? None of the 3 is considered the owner. None of them. Okay, turn to the next page. So they already said, old machlokas, the gedolei achronim. What do you do with it? 150 years ago, the Maram Shik, he said that the stockholders are not the really owners. I spoke about that last time. The Maharshag, his big Talmud, said, how can that be? If they only consider the Malva, who's the lover? Who owns it? It must be that the shareholders own it. Okay, I'm tipping my hand. That's what I think. The shareholders own it. And others make a compromise that what the shareholders, they own it, but they're limited ownership, right? And how do you describe that for Dinei Torah? Some say if you have chometz for Pesach, there's no bayiro bayamotzei because it's a balis chelkit. I told you last time I thought what it means is maybe a davar sheina b'shusto because they can't control it. Minchas Yischak says no. There's an issue of chametz, but in his opinion, that's only if they have voting rights. Without voting rights, they're not. And Rav Moshe, this is the famous Rav Moshe, as we all know, everyone knows. Hiskim l'balei ha'manoros yeshdin bailim, av hichlik l'chadesh, av osam ha'machzikim b'rov menayos ha'shlita nechshavim k'bailim. Balei ha'miut einam k'bailim, kevan shebepowel Elem kol dea v'ashpoa b'nyonei hachevra. Says Rabbi Weiss, Svarzu recholka miod. Eidem b'sashevas alalev. Lo yitochen shebali osa zchus sheyikshu bris b'neihem v'yu harov yu kabalim u'sheyishapik agalgal v'yimsu atzam b'miyut ava b'shadayin osan azchuyos hakinyonios b'yadam kemen she'ovda ashpa'osan yipokam b'shem bailim otu ashpa'hi she'otzeres bailus. He doesn't think that's true. Double or nothing, he says. It doesn't say much. Fine. Just going through it to show you what he says. So the Maramshik says, no, the Baya Manoyas have no din of Bailim, as we said before, they have Malvim. Who is a Bailim? He doesn't say. So there are those who say that the directors are the Bailim. Now, because he started off with the Maramshik, he came to that conclusion. Because otherwise the Marshak is right. Tamur Ma'od, that the directors own it. How can it be? He quotes others who argue on the basis. Okay, very good. So it's so far knocking everything out. So now he comes to his famous conclusion. Os Gimel. And here's Taiti Borer. Tamar Nishpatisha Lechev Be'erev Mugbal. B'mtzius HaKalkalis HaModernis. Kishiyus Mishpatis B'fnei Asma. Takaf Gam B'bchina Elchatit. Yep. We gotta follow the law. The cave and the af echad mishlosh lagormim markivim esacher ve'en lo ba'al gemura u'matav lo shiru avoseinu en lo lischakim u'lechadesh chadoshas el lekablas mishpat ha'amim b'chol ha'olam kulo chol ki agavna vadai dina de malchusa dina. He thinks not so dim Torah. Igad in Torah. Ma'afyinei ha'baylas chalukim ben shlosh lagormim. Then he says, look at Sofnas Paneach. No Ribbis banking. If you look at the Sofnas Paneach, I don't know if I looked it up. We're supposed to look it up. I don't think I have a chance to do it yet. You'll send it to me when you find it.
Oh, I have it. I'll make a copy for you.
Okay, please. It's also almost like Tzura B'loch. Some kind of, what should we say, rugged chaviz. Not that I fully understand what he's saying. I'm sorry? Whatever it may be. Whatever he says. Okay. He says, even without the Machusa, we should treat it as an independent. Amidas Ametzius, because the people who have the shares have no, listen carefully, Achrayos Ishis, the Chovos HaChevra, that's what we said before, Be'eron Mugbal, and they can't decide what should be done. So it must be, the Chevra is a balance on the Chaseh. It owns itself. And therefore, it's not obligated Mitzvah Torah. It was only given to Bnei Yisrael, and not to a Chevra Be'eron Mugbal.
They can commit torts and nobody will be liable.
We're not finished yet. Okay. So now, what about Ribbis? He says, well, Ribbis is so chomer, not everyone agrees with me. Look at the kids of Shulchan Aruch and Imre Yosher, and they didn't understand what banks really are in those days. But let's assume, he says, the worst case scenario. Even if you follow the Mekilim, the problem of Achrayas. We know about Achrayas. Yoredes in Kuf Samach Chesed Chav Beis. It belongs to a Goy, Achrayas Yisrael. See, so if there's no Bailim, okay, no Bailim. Okay? But the moment is in the Achrayas of these shareholders. They're the ones going to lose the money, so therefore it should be also Achrayas. And then to get out of that, he tries to make the following suggestion. The Achray, or the Balamos, or makes the Havah B'Poel, that's an individual. Okay? He has a certain measure of Achrayas. But there's no proof from here. The next, turn over the page, please. That's going to define Ribbis. And he goes to the Maramshik, and there's others who disagree with it, the Marshag. And they themselves question whether there's a company has din Ribbis within Achrayas. Achrayas only hefsid maman yashir, But Bali Menoyos, if the Marshik would be right, they're not mafsid. Oh, the shibud, it's not considered achrayas and hefsid. And the dividends, is only that's only indirect. It's not on their personal responsibility. So the achrayas should not create a Ribbis. That's what he's suggesting. Fine. Now, this is something of a loan which is given to a company. Rav Moshe, famous Teshuvah, there's no Isser. Why? It's not. Ein kan love klal, ela business hu alove. Says he, trying to hold on to Rav Moshe's kapota. Harekes vasenu, the chevra hi a shiyut mishpatit b'fnei asma. That's not what Rav Moshe says. He says he's more than himself. When Moshe says weiter, kshalova hu stam odom shu chaya b'shibud aguf av shamal v'hu corporation yeshis Ribbis. Moshe is beferish. It's only his heter is only if the lova is a corporation, no shibud aguf. But if the mal is a corporation, is Ribbis k'tzutza. That doesn't fit well with Rav Moshe Weiss's theory. This kashesi lehavin lo makshacheva lova omer she'en kan lova klal the business of a lova. Flormina ken shachav malva. Floritan loma ken gam shein bal chemichuyam yeshis v'chud have business or malva. And he doesn't understand the marashag either. On the one hand, he's against the maram sheik. There's a malva and there's what? There's a malva without a lova. So what's going on? He writes in Simon Hey, if the chevra be'avan hu alove ein kan yis Ribbis ki'ilu ein aguf alove klal hanachosim chayovim. So what do they hold? He's trying to defend these two gedolim, the Marshag and Rav Moshe, who don't agree with him. But what do they actually say? He's trying to say, what do they say? They say it's shutfin bi'alma. Oh, here I believe is telling the truth. Where I grew up, corporations over the shareholders, they're shutfin. Ella, kevan shein kol achrayis ishis rovetzes al balei hamanoyos. Einem rechshavim kelove. Aber kasher achevra malve nechshav adol shebal manoros hem malvim dechol musag achrayas velove toli velove malve. Oh, comes up Shlomo Zalman and says there has to be at least an Issa de Rabbana. We'll come to it. Leis daiti and the Reim Berurim. The main kan Ribbis k'tzutza, shemein kan love kan Ribbis de Rabbana dein kan. And of course Rav Shlomo Zalman. The end. Quote: Afim noma the ein Ribbis k'tzutza hol hamanalim b'alei menoros ein machroim klal b'ofen ishi. Right? If you want to arguendo, Ribbis k'tzutza. The koma the Rabbana v'adei yoser. Why? Kevin the b'shah shemalva mos la bank nasa kemalva b'Ribbis leb'alei hamenoros shemanoshim shachayom b'mitzvus shehusna b'neihem shapiron yemugbo rak merachush shalahem sheshkiu b'bank v'lo mikor b'chushim ha'proti v'ez adom mamish l'mal v'sor b'sosayim l'oris kol yalma osur. So he's saying what I think is the truth. They're the partners and they made a deal. You deal with them, you're bound by the deal that they made in advance. Not we made a deal. The deal is no personal responsibility. Says Rav Mordechai Willig, you think it's not true? Be'emes mistabet fei. Dein alvo lebalei hamanoros shelo b'kshu alvo v'lo eschayv l'klapav v'lo l'chera. Separate institution. He said daraisa when it's a malvin. Why? Kanoshim shishtarfel l'dvar aveira livchor b'anoshim b'suyamim she's asked about alvos mosem b'Ribbis. Ach noros neflesi so dakei Teshuvah hagoyin ha'otzma rietinga shekazav b'pshitos b'simen nundala d'shari v'sova d'shani yisomim t'malo v'lo yishalem yuchlu shaper ha'yisomim l'tovuk sheyigdalu. So there is some kind of shibud aguf. Ma'asheng b'bank rak an holos ha'bank yichol l'tboa v'lo balei hamanoros. So he's saying over here, not only if there's a low, even if there's a malva, who ploy, says the Shlomo Zalman. Oto Ruven shemasa kaspel l'shimen, amanas halos b'Ribbis k'tzutza, u'mefurish hista hashliach emalovim, שאין להם שום עסק על בעלי המעוש, לא יוכל בשמו from the tovam, כי מהידי also שליח בלבד, וכי נפקא בשם איסר ריבס? Shlomo Zalman sounds right to me. He says, no, it's not doma. לאנשים שהשתתפו לדבר עבר לבחור באנשים מסוימים. Why? אין כאן תנאי מסוים שבין פלוני לאלמוני באופני ההלוואה והגבייה שברצוסו מרחיב וברצוסו מקצר, אלא מבנה כלכלי מוגדר וחוקי המוכר בכל העולם כולו, שאין ביד בעלי המנועס לשנוס, ולא מראים לבד חידוש תורה חדשה תמוהה, כך נקטו רבים מגדולי האחרונים כנ"ל. סוף דבר, בא להם על עצמו, and therefore gneva gzela. Rabbi Bleich once suggested that if you can hold with this mahalach, you can just take all you want from the corporation, steal from the corporation. Rabbi Osher Weiss have a new kula, steal from every corporation because it's just something amorphous. No, that he can't go that far. He'll get in trouble. So what does he say? A split. Watch. Sof davar. כל הנוגע לאיסור גנבה וגזלה וכדומה שמצוות שכליות שבינו לחברו ודאי פושט שמצוות אלה מוטלות אף על החברה. Why? Why? He's a goylem. Why? Also לא לגנוב, also לגנוב ממנו, דבר הוא פושט שגם גוף זה שיש לו בקבלי החלטות בעלי בחירה צורך לסנהג בדרכי הצדק והיושר. עולם על האמץ והדין ועל השלום. נו. Halo gozel begrama, v'cholik of aganav nem imom gzeil lechet biyodam. But negusei Torah, chometz, ribbis, Shabbos, there's no problem. How do you like that? That's what he says. I don't understand it whatsoever. I felt I should first tell you everything he says by Richus to know what he said. Know what he said. We're not done yet. Not done yet. Watch this. This is what we spoke about last time about Brera. I don't want to get involved in that. But I want to tell you that Rav Mordechai Weiss is not free of criticism because 6 years later, in Tov Shin Ayin, someone was masig on him. Masig on him. He doesn't understand it. Afim ein lebalam anoris balas gemura, kemen shem balam ein balam zelosam, lo mistaba shloim mitzuvim b'mitzvos haTorah b'mash shalahem. So you didn't understand me, he says back. Yodati, that they say differently than me. I know. They say they own it with the Babalas Mugbelis. Fine. Michas Kafazu, they had Mitzvah Torah, the Michas Yitzchak. He says that's wrong. Nak Kedabal Mugbelis, Yesh the Chever Balam Acherim. Absolute Balam. Who are they? The Chever Balam Alasma. Chok HaModerni Mugderes HaChever Kishus Mishpatis V'Kalis Me'asma, Kachu Gama Madal Chati. This is something which to me is so foreign. So foreign. And he adds, he explains himself. He's a good Baal Masbet. Mashka Safti, the Ein Baal HaManois, the person Kabbalim, Kevan She'ein B'yodam L'nhog, B'momon HaChever G'shalahem, Ein Zu HaSiba L'kach She'ein Hein Baalim, Ella Simen L'davar. Simen B'vad. Etzem Musik Chever Ba'am, uprotei dinav lo shoram avoseinu b'yadenu lagdiru el lefi masha hu ken borer she'ein lechever balam zulas hi atzmo. You have to have precedent for this. Even Rabbi Weiss realized after being attacked, he made up out of whole cloth out of the thin air. It owns itself. Oh, he's trying to find precedent. Now we have to get into the nitty-gritty. Precedent. Etzem amusach sheguf mesuyim yebalam al atzmo k'agdor anal. Look what he says. And the estaiti din atzibur kidin shut from the alma and benzel ezevelo klum against its stuff nas paneach in a few places. Yeah, he says 5, 6 places to look up the stuff nas paneach. So you and me, here I thought that stuff nas paneach was right. Okay, we'll come to it. Right. The shut from the chud, the tzibur lechud. That's what the Sof Nachaseh said. No, the b'chol mokom masha the chol b'nei ha'yir didn't shoot from the hem in nechsei ha'yir, and therefore yochal echad lesser as chalko l'chayirin, yochal kol echad l'hastag mechelko, or the yesh l'chol echad l'chelik mesuyim shavei shalom. We'll see later that that's true of a city, but may not be true of different entities. This means a state. אין כאן אישות משפטית עצמאית, ואף לפני החלוקה שותפים הם. They're partners before they split the estate. ולא כמו שכוסף בקובץ שיעור בבבסטרה, תפיסת הבייס שונה מגד השותפים הגאון הציבור. I thought Rabbi Chana was right. We'll come back to it. And he said, explain as to why the shutfim gemurah. Fine. Shutfim b'nei ha'ir v'tzibur the shutfim d'alma. Ein ewela mishim de b'tzibur ein ba'al yedum v'mugdarim shalok ha'shutfim shekonos and bizeh hishbam yedum v'mugdarim. Ach v'yesod geder balusam ein ben zeh lezeh v'lo klum. He has a Gemara in Yuma. Yichilku Chazal in Beis HaKnesset the Kfarim the Metami ben Negoyim Beis HaKnesset the Krochim and the Metami ben Negoyim Pirush Rashi Shumochim Shvokim V'Meskabsim Shom Mikomos Harbei V'Yasir L'Kol Habol L'Tzpal V'Ein Lo Ba'alim Miyuchodim Harei Sheish Gedem Miyuchod B'Mokom Shein Lo Ba'alim Miyuchodim V'Yeduim Af Shi V'Sodo Shel Dover Yesh Shaniach Shebein Beis HaKnesset the Kfarim Bein Beis HaKnesset the Shechel Mispalim B'Socha. What does that mean? Oh, he says, where's the source for this? Matnas Kahuna. The Michad Gisa, Vekinyan Gama, the Shevet Kahuna, Oschus Bialma, or Shibut, rather from the Rambam. Yisrael, Shanol, Bechor, Be'edro, Yochel, Achil, Truma, Aflefnation, Nasul, Lakoin, having moment as Shevet, having Bechlat Kinyan Kasvel, Yochel, Balachmo, Achma Yidach, Nira, and the Gather Shutfus, Chola Kohanim. שבכריח תגיע תרומה זו לחלקו של כהן מסוים, and get a shutfus על בדבר שכל אחד מהשותפים הקודש נמש בו, ובמה שמשחק בין כל שותפים לחלק גם היחסי. תרומה ומייסות אין המשחק באופן שווה בין כל הכהנים, אף שמעמדם של כל הכהנים בשבט הוא זהה, identical, אף שכהן פלוני יקבל תרומה רבס ולחבר לקבל כלום, ובכריח אין זה גדר של שותפים רגילה. I'm masking, I'm finally masking something he says. Finally. Okay, near the Shevet Kohanim Gufas Neyatzmahu Yeshel Kinyan Ubailus Ein Tu Ubailus Shel Kohanim Suyom Shel Ela Shel Shevet, and that's the same as Chaburah Berdam Mugval. And he says hektish, right? Hektish. That you see, the Rishus hektish is Bailus Gemura. Who's a Bailus hektish? I agree again. I don't agree. Let me explain to you what I think is the distinction. Let me just finish.
After a whole bunch of Rishonim, we see the Ba'al Hektish is Hashem.
Hashem is the Ba'al Hektish. Fine. Okay, we'll come back to it.
There's a Ba'al.
Okay, it's the Ba'al of the whole world. Okay.
That's exactly what Yerushalmi says.
Okay. I'll call with the last page. Near it. As we said before, comes up to Pesach and says, "Nichsei Medina, Yisrael Memshala, Machzos Tzava v'Chadome, Ptur Mezuzah, Bibiachomes, Mitzatora, Kemen she'enim b'Bailas Adam Mesuyam, b'Bailas HaMedina, and Mitzvah Torah no Heges Behem." Look at Harsvi. And he started in there, the Masha b'Bailas Kol Yisrael, have a Bailas Gemura. For Raya Ladava, Vashem Chacham Besukkah, Kol Yisrael Yotzim Besukkah Achas. Rashi tells what they're saying. So Shachla Medina, B'tchumim Shonim, Ba'as Medina, Gidron Yon. I'm not talking about that right now. Sof Dover, Shani Nichsei Tziva or Nichsei Ayir, Yeshachol Bnei Ayir Chelik Mem, Ucheshutfim Hem, Nichsei Achever Sheshel Achever V'Bas Menos Kili Prati. Etc. Ad Kan. Then he says, "Oh, Rav Moshe." I don't know why he doesn't call Rav Moshe by name. Ein kan shibud aguf, al shibud nichsei, ein ze mugdal kalva. This is Rabbi Bleich completely dismissed last time around. And you have an ally here. Here he agrees with you. Baruch Hashem. Achbemes mevua b'spav matzir samachem with beis mochalo bayis mochalo soda. Sheyuli Maos Hagzem Li Asur Rashi Ezem Machel Machos Hava. Sham Poshet, and a mocha mechuyev meshubed klal lahachzer lokech moshe b'yodo, who zakay lahachzer amos tumas b'ayis v'sada lein lav shibud. It's still called alva. So clearly it's also. Is it also the rice of the Rabbanan? We don't know. Here I agree with him. But I have to tell you that when in his divisions over here, I thought the exact opposite is true. Exact opposite is true. The Fiani is Zaiti, the only time we can say something is a separate entity if it's not made by me. A corporation is simply a man-made invention that people get together and we say we're going to own something, we're going to have limited liability, we're blah, 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 blah. I made it up. Who cares that the government says it's an entity? It's man-made. I made it up. So therefore, I own it. I own it. Again, I won't say it's limited. It's Eino B'Shuso, very nice. But I own it. With everybody else, I own it. With an understanding. The Fiani is Taiti. If you're in a city, they come to the city, they decide, I'm going to move into this city. I can leave the city. Again, it's the same thing. I own it. Part of it. Details to be discussed. We spoke about it a little bit in a different context. As opposed to a group that is not made by me. What's not made by me? Hektish. Kodesh Baruch created the Torah a concept called Hektish. In my opinion, the same thing as Rabbi Chanan. I hold like Rabbi Chanan. Because Rabbi Chanan, he quoted Rabbi to disagree with him. Rabbi Chanan said that Tfusas Habayis is like Mammon Atzibur. I agree with him on both. But Tfusas Habayis is created by somebody's death. No one created it. Reuben dies and his son Shimon and Levi. Shimon and Levi didn't divvy it up. That's going to be later. Fakert. Right now, it's an estate. It's a Kodesh Baruch Hu created by having Reuven die. And he has two sons, Shimon and Levi. I didn't make that understanding. So Rabbi Chanan is correct. So Mammon Atzibur, so my Rebbe of Soloveitch used to say, don't confuse Mammon Atzibur with Mammon Ashutfin. Exactly the opposite of him. Two totally different concepts. But a Tzibur is a Tzibur of Klal Yisrael. I can't go into all the details now of the Ber Agola, they talk about in Masechta Nedarim, things of this nature. That's my understanding. If I made it up, it belongs to me with a side deal. I'm not personally liable, blah, 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 blah. If I didn't make it up, happened by itself. How did it happen by itself? Kodesh Baruch Hu created a someone should die and have two sons. Kodesh Baruch Hu created a concept called Hektish. Also, Mammon Atzibur of Klal Yisrael. These are Kodesh Baruch Hu's inventions. And therefore, that can be, at the present time, a separate entity. Genuinely, the opposite of what he's saying over here. And that's why I think Medinas Yisrael, I thought it was also, I thought Rav Tzvi Pesach was right. Medinas Yisrael is something which, I don't know, it's true that the Medina was declared by a bunch of Zionists in 1948. That is true. But they created a separate entity called a tzibur, which is different than a couple of guys in a city. Right? If you live in Eretz Yisrael, you can't get out of that tzibur. You can't move from Tel Aviv to Haifa. It doesn't make any bit of difference. I'm living in Eretz Yisrael at the present time. There was a government. I guess the Karta doesn't recognize the government. But if you recognize the government, they are the government, and therefore I thought, like with Pesach, that Israeli bonds did not need a heter risk. That's what I thought. I know the others disagree with him. But there I thought, the opposite of what he's saying, that is a separate entity. That's a Mammon Atzibur. They can argue, because it was, I don't want to get into Zionism, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu create the state of Israel. I don't want to get involved in that kind of stuff. But it is a government. A government is not just people. It's a concept of tzibur. Maybe tzibur was not created by 1948. Maybe tzibur was created by Avram Avinu when HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him the land.
Why do you have to say it's people created it? This distinction between the people of the Rebbeinu Shalom, the new concept of tzibur and halalah.
Right. Okay. You're right. I was being overly dramatic. Good. Tzibur. But tzibur is only not. If you and I, why can't we be a tzibur? The two of us. It's Lashon Rabbim. That's what my Rebbe said. Tzibur is a tzibur. You can't. Tzibur is. I don't want to say it's created by Hashem, but tzibur is an entity which exists, right? Klal Yisrael is a tzibur.
Social contract.
Okay. Klal Yisrael is a tzibur. Hektish is a tzibur, right? But not a corporation. That's ridiculous. So I wanted to read everything he said because I don't want to be accused of giving him short shrift. Okay? This is, the first half of the Chaburah. Now I come to the second of the Chaburah. I will try to finish on time. Question? Oh, I'm sorry. Please talk loud. I don't hear anything you say.
According to Rabbi, can everybody hear me?
Yeah. Go for it.
Talk loud.
According to Rabbi Ischiluk about whether it's man-made or not, why, if it's not man-made, does it have its own distinct identity where it's not bound by Torah mitzvahs?
No. All I was saying is that if there's let's take Rabbi Bleich's more limited definition, which I'm happy to accept. The concept of a tzibur. People who make arrangements on their own, that's not a tzibur. A tzibur could be two people. That's my point. Tefisas habayis is two people. That's why he gave that definition. Two people is a tzibur. Why? Because the father died, and the halacha is money goes down to the two sons equally. It says no bechor. The two of them own that property. That's also a kind of a tzibur. So I gave a definition. It's not man-made, but you could quibble with the specifics. But that tefisas habayis once again, I fall back on Rabbi Chanan. He says, tefisas habayis shonim meged shutfim have k'mamen atzibur. Why? So because
The Torah created it.
Huh?
Because the Torah created it.
The Torah created exactly. So okay, not the Kodesh Baruch created it. The Torah created it. Okay.
What is
The Kodesh Baruch created the Torah, so he created it. Sorry, louder.
can anyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, my question is back to the government question. I think Rabbi Weingart, Shaul Weingart, whose Teshuvah we mentioned maybe once or twice so far, makes the argument based on the government that if that's the case and all new things that find no mucker in the Torah, so now what do you do about the United States government, which is also a creation? You could call the Constitution a contract, and it owns a ton of chametz and makes loans with Ribbis, and we're all owners under this construct. How do you distinguish the government from the corporation?
So I said earlier, and Rabbi Black will give a more precise definition, I welcome it, that there exists a concept of a tzibur. Now, a tzibur, in my view, is a legitimate government, is defined by the Torah as a tzibur. V'haraya, if a government conquers land, belongs to that malchus. There are concepts, not just like 300 million people got together and decided to create the United States of America. It's a government.
Fundamental difference. The malchus exists in the Torah, but the melech owned everything. Here, the people own everything. I mean, who owns the government? And one can conceptualize as a glorified corporation of some sort. It doesn't. The democratic concept of the modern state does not exist in the Torah.
Look, this goes back to the different Kiel. Is there a difference between a monarchy and a democracy in terms of violence on the land? There is a concept of a tzibur. The concept of tzibur is called Yisrael. I'm not sure that other tzibur, they exist in tzibur. I'm not sure the Dinas Yisrael is a tzibur. But the traditional gave mitzvahs, the gave mitzvahs of karbonos. Who's supposed to bring them? Not you and not me. It's a tzibur has to bring
No, but the judge is asking, that's the Israeli government, all right. But what about the American government? Why is the American government just a group of people making a corporation?
I don't think they're any better than a group of people making a corporation.
So you think the American government is a problem?
Yes.
So then we're in big trouble.
You go back to
Shut Vasakim, we're not so excited about this.
I understand. I don't think so. It's Yeshber or Abra or it's not whatever you start
Right.
with. But the concept of tzibur, I don't think extends to Nakum. There is such a concept that tzibur can do certain things. And that tzibur is a Jewish tzibur. I'm not aware of the fact that the Akum, Rousseau thought so, but I don't know that we have a marker for that. But this notion that people get together and they make a tzibur, which is usually differences, I think, except when you come to things like karbonos. And now I have a Rashi. The Rashi had two different opinions. The Tushi is a portion of tzibur, it's a new bylaws.
Right.
Yeah,
okay, so we're still stuck with the American government, which I thought was also a tzibur. I thought the fact that the Torah recognizes, as you correctly pointed out, the Torah's version of government is monarchy. But maybe I'm not a constitutional expert as you are, but maybe some of the Torah's precedents can be extended to a democracy as well. Can't near it, but we have to look for more literature on it. Maybe.
So would a shul have to do with the tzibur?
A shul is a shutfus. You can become a member, not become a member. You can leave town. That's right. A shul is shutfus. Can't near it.
A member can make a tallis, not a guest.
That's what the Michas Yeshiva tries to prove to against all these terms, the fact that there's Ribbis in the basic Knesset, more Masechta Megillah. I thought, no, that doesn't prove anything. A shul is just a shutfim. Okay, good. Judge, we still owe you about the American government. I'll try to do some more research, and then you're all my deputies to try to answer the question about the American government. I thought it's Kollel Tzibur, but maybe look in Sfarim, see what they say. Yes, Elyon.
I'm going to try a different approach in a few weeks, but hopefully you won't throw me out.
Oh no, we love different approaches. You see, what did I do? I spent a half an hour with Moshe Weiss's approach first. So, I believe in other approaches. Just I didn't agree with most of what he said. I may agree with more of what you say. We'll find out. Yes, Elyon.
In terms of an American democracy, I'm just wondering if the pshat is that since the melech, so to speak, the government represents all the yachidim, do we view the melech as really just representing the yachidim, and then it's more like a corporation, and then we have the judge's question? Or do we view it more as all the yachidim somehow have a din of malchus, meaning that it's still a government, it's still a tzibur, and the fact that it's a democracy is not because the king represents the yachidim, but rather that the yachidim, so to speak, all have a din of malchus.
That's Rav Henkin. I don't understand what he's saying.
What does Rav Henkin say? Well, let's hold on. We're getting Rabbi Henkin's opinion now.
Look, there's the Divri Machil who says that a democracy is a shutz, that I understand perfectly. American government, a bunch of shutzim like everybody else, not like the Aretz Shaloi.
What does Rav Henkin say?
Rav Henkin says that Aretz Shaloi doesn't mean Aretz Shaloi. What it means that he's maspik, ma'im, movin, bizul, what do you think? 20 squeeze, besides the schools to live there. And that's the eker of the Aretz Shaloi. So democracy is Aretz Shaloi. They give you the right to live here. I had this once with Jan Kamnetz, it was in a different context. And I was trying to tell him in America, I didn't know the difference. Because I told the shutfus. And he tells me, what kind of business? I said, not Aretz Shaloi. He says, I zu them in the Bürgerschaft. I'll take away your citizenship. I had chutzpah. I answered him, Yeshiva, Rosh Yeshiva, nicht bei mir.
Ooh, you were born here.
Yeah?
Now they want to take it away now. Trump wants to take it away.
Explain it to him. He's a naturalized citizen.
Right.
I'm not.
Right.
He only take it away for whatever.
Now, the whole thing is collapsing now.
There's no way to take it away from.
Did Rosh hear the distinction?
He understood it. I can't tell you he agreed with me. The fact he smiled and shook his head, that doesn't mean he agreed necessarily. But
okay.
He recognized it was important.
So let's start part two. So part two is to hear the main individuals who are differing with me are the Marashag and subsequently Rav Moshe and Nigras Moshe. They have a different word. They say, no, a corporation is absolutely obligated, it's owned by people. And therefore, if a corporation lends money to a private citizen, Jew to Jew, it's a Ribbis to the Raisa. There's no question about it in their minds. Other way around. What will happen if a Jew, a private Jew, lends money with Ribbis to a corporation? They say there is fundamentally, they talk about the possibility of no shibud haguf, just a shibud nechasim, and as a result, mutter. Not just asa d'Rabbanan, absolutely mutter. So let me show you a Gemara. I haven't opened a Gemara yet today. I feel bad. I brought all this from. Let me open at least one Gemara. A Gemara Masechta Gittin. That's where it all comes from. It all starts with this Gemara. Daf Lamed Amud Aleph. Everyone starts from there. The Gemara says as follows. It's talking about Malvas, a Kohen, a Levi, etc. So the Gemara says as follows. Ema Mishim Ribbis, my timer, listen to the words of the Gemara. Kevan dechilesle lo yoevle, ki isle nami, ein ba Mishim Ribbis. What does that mean? Zogt Rashi, dechilesle, kigon nishtadfu sadosov. Wow. Which means, at first glance, if I can lose everything, I'll lose the ribbis, I'll lose the keren, I'll come up with nothing. It's not ribbis. Oh, this gives you an opening to say every corporation is that way. Because why? If the corporation will default, I have no one to go after. It's limited liability.
This is exact Gemara that Rosh told me. This is a paradigm. He said, the guy is saying, the lawyer is saying, there'll be no shibra guf. If the farmer doesn't have a crop next year,
right.
Then I have no shibra guf. Only if shibra chosin.
So let's go slow. So there are two questions. One, can there exist a shibra nechasim without shibra guf? Can it exist? Bichlal, Black proved that it can't even exist. I'm not going to argue with him. Can't even exist. Doesn't exist. Slowly.
You gave me permission to argue.
I don't think it exists.
That's what you told us. Doesn't exist. You respect.
But Rabbi gave me permission to argue, though.
Well, slowly. Says Teshuvah. Kevan dechilesle lo yoevle, v'ho diyosarav v'pardesa bezel neshech tafayin gimel. Afal gav di'ispei tiyua. So Teshuvah. Hachi tiru mishum takanas koyin. This is what we call in our language a murder b'mixas. Teshuvah is murder b'mixas. It's also with the Rabbanon, and it's only mutter over here for takanas koyin, which will get you out of a shal of tzutza. That's true, but will not get you out of a shal of the Rabbanon. This is the problem. Is that there are those who disagree completely with this mahalach, and I as time allows, I can't read you everything. I brought a lot of svarim, but it's not going to work. But we'll try a little bit. Let me open one of my favorite svarim in Ribbis called the Nesiva Shalom. He also quotes this Gemara, Daf Laman Amar Aleph. This is in Siman Kuf Ayin Gimel Sif Tes. Os Yuzayin. He understands very well. This hat is nafkamina for Ribbis lechera be'er mukbal. That he doesn't hide his agenda here. Os, that's an os tes vav. And he gives a whole bunch of tes zayin. He finally quotes the Gemara. What's even this Gemara? Afim posku shekabel trumas u'ma'aser shel kama shanim. Pofan shel lefid mahamotzu yarviach amal v'harbe. No, it's the Ribbis. Why? Kevan di les say lo yoevle ki yisle les mishim Ribbis. What do you see? As chayra, kol alva she'amalva olo lahafsev lo lekabel es hakeren bechazara ein bo yisle Ribbis. Now Teshuvah says it's the Rabbanon, right from Pardesa, right? Fine. Teshuvah does not explain. He says, why is there no Isa Daraisa? He just suggests that's also with the Rabbanon, right? Suggests it. Maybe because it's not called Ribbis Ktsutza. Hov Ribbis ain't a betucha. Oh, that's a nice svara. If it's not, Ribbis Ktsutza means 100 for 110. Here, it's 100 for 110, all right, but it may be 0. So it's Ribbis, it is, but it's not Ribbis Ktsutza. That's an interesting svara. Not okay. Or that's one idea. Or ein hakeren betucha hare chisaron b'shem halva eidu halva shatorah also b'yisrus. It's not called halva at all. However, he quotes the Ramban. I brought the Ramban in Gittin, but just to save time, I'll read it from here. Tosfos says it's a quote of the Ramban. Ki les le lo yoav le pirish shenishtatfu sadosav u'mafsid hakol lo mishalim le lo keren v'l'ribis hilkach. The key word. Zavini hava v'shari. It's considered a mekach That's why it's mutter. That's why it's mutter. And it's taka mutter, but only in a case where it looks like a mekach. And he tells you a bunch of other Rambans in Bava Metzia, which will take care of the Paradesa issue. And he wants to know, it's a Svara D'Oraisa. The Kevin Dena Ker Muftachas Lo Enzu Avo, Mayadin, you gotta love the Sefer. Mishayalva L'Chaver B'Ribbis Ketzutza, V'yasu T'nai, an external condition. Shem Yerdu Geshamim B'Yom Ploni, Yipoter Alovim L'Shamas HaKeren. An arbitrary condition. If it rains in 2 weeks on Monday, so then you're potter. What do you say? The Rambam will say the same thing? He thinks it's not doesn't necessarily follow. Why? Well, hit the Ramban, but often shemachmas atzanaim shenakeren muftachas mekabeles halvo. These are nice words. Toar v'tzura shel mekach. It's a description and a form of mekach. Kagon malva lelachon lelevi u'posach shapiron yehei b'peres ha'maisrus. The nimsa knows in most ala peres hasidim. I'm buying futures, the future fruits. Im lo yil peres and amos chozim lo. So it's a tsuras mekach magma shamos nitonas ayde hamava lo yachzir elav afim lo yikabel tamura. There'll be no produce that year. Uvazeh shona dinami alva or mishar psika shemak the mos avar mekach the b'shneim lo yikabel sacha peres shekosav yechaz lo amos. The Rabban themselves doesn't get in Bava Metzia, etc. Kizvini. Aval mi'alva b'Ribbis Ketzutza b'tznai shem yerdu g'shama yipoter halova min l'shalem afas hakeren ain't gonna shim chesaron b'tzura salva chen efshel yibazeh iser Ribbis Ketzutza. That's a very nice svar. What about la halacha l'maisa? The problem is, even though it's a nice svara, la halacha, he says, we don't follow the Ramban. Sorry. Shari asu b'simin kufa and gimel sifyud b'pardesa af kashalohista sheitno sach mesuyim shel peres. That was the Ramban's way to get out of pardesa. Uvakocha, as Torah says in Samach Samach Dalim, kasher iker ha'ozolim mishem aganata v'lo mishem asikun, the danger of losing all your money. How is the nechshav ribbis? No rights of excusa? No. Could be only the Rabbanu. Okay? So far, beautiful presentation. I think it's 100% right that it varies from the halacha, from a possible d'Rabbanan to a possible d'oraisa if there's no liability on the corporation or whoever else. Okay, but say it's mutter? No. Say it's mutter? No. So there's much more to be said. I'm just trying to end on time. Let me just skip a little bit. So he has, again, I'll try to quote from the secondary sources because he has, well, let's see what I can do over here. There's another Gemara. He quotes us here in Os Chav Dalet. Watch. Tzir no sav shel halva asher ein hakeren betucha, hi halva asher kibul alav hamalva achrayis hakeren. I'll lend you the money, and if it goes sour, I lose. Hainu, shemyabdu amos ba'ones, yipoter alovim l'shalom. How is it? Shona me'alva regila shebochol achrayis yalalova. The whole definition of a loan is that you have to give me the money. I don't care what happened. You lost it. You invested it sour. It's irrelevant. You have couple tziyurim. Baba Metzia Samach Testament Beis. Rav Chama Hiskim Osov. He thought you can rent out money. He said, no, it's obviously prohibited. You can't rent out money. What's the Havamina to rent out money? The Havamina was, Rav Chama wasn't Chalila, a Toya, Legamre. We don't pass like him. But what was his Havamina that could rent out money? Zok Toisvis, Shem Shekibel Olav Achrayis Onsu. Rav Chama accepted upon himself if something's just an onus happens and the money gets burned up by a fire somewhere in California, the fire comes and burns all the houses down and there's nothing to do about it, so you don't have to pay me back. Therefore he thought, it's like Shar Schiris, the Sharia, we pass it us. So he wants to know, in the next os, what kind of achrayas? Mos hanitonas lo tzor. The socher uses for tzaracha, then hapa olam. What do you mean kamal achrayas on? So he goes to Rishonim and say different things. different opinions. Again, I can't go into all the details right now. 3 different psukim. Just to save time. He says, save time. In Siman Kufa and Vav Sefav, the Ramah quotes the Trumas Hadeshen. That I brought with me, Trumas Hadeshen. So says, Im Kibel Amal Valatzmo, Kamachrayis Geneva Vaveda, Hareza Het the Gomer. Says it in Ramah and Kufa and Zayin, that's only by the Rabbana, not by the Gemura. And the Shach wants to be mata even on the Hava Gemura. And the Beis says you can't rely upon this. Even Trumas Hadeshen was not mata Lamaisa. And the Gra says the whole thing is wrong. Okay, so we're in trouble. It could be the Rabbana, it could be the rice, it could be Mutter. Such a situation. And then we come to which is more. That's the Trumas Hadeshen. You want to look it up? Siman Shin Beis. I mean, I have it here, but I don't want to finish on time. Then he has a Rivosh. Where's the Rivosh? Rivosh is in Siman Shin Ches. A few Siman Shin Ches. Mal ve'mol salachrayas sfina. We'll explain in a minute. It's quoted Shulchan Aruch. I have not really opened the Shulchan Aruch board. I didn't bring the Shulchan Aruch into it. I didn't pull it out. That's not right. Kuf Ayin Gimel. Sif Yud Ches. This doesn't sound right. Shuvas a Rivosh. A person lent money, 20 for 24, al achrayas hasfina. Let me open the Rivosh just to dramatize it a little bit more. Not going to read the whole Rivosh, that's for sure. $20 for 24. What does that mean? You come back, 24. What'll happen? The boat sinks, or it's pirated. Should be mutter. Should be mutter. Also, he says, also it's absolutely prohibited. You cannot allow it. Cannot allow it. Why? Why don't we just say, since he loses everything, watch. He says that such is prohibited. Let's take a look. He says as follows. Read you the words. Usr. Salvo. Ribbis, 20 for 24. I, the mal with Makabal Christ and most may hemshech mahalach asfinat Teshuvah. Adayan lo yosem midi halvo. To zuzi yoev zuzi shokil. Flo hadre le zuzi be'enayu. Flo domi lemora, a plow. V'haina mahidi Rav Chama b'du moga zuzi b'pshita. Fimasha pirshu atoisis. Sure, Rav Chama Makabal Christ and most and netzu kodesh atzion alove. And it's still usr. V'gam achar shotziem. Im nensu kol, listen carefully. Kol nichse halove shepotem milashalem. Watch this now. Important. V'af im yalzor v'yashir. Afilu hachi nes hazeh b'gemara. Kevin lo dami l'morad lo hadri beinayu lo yede pichsayu. You know what's going on? He's potem milashalem. Even if he's going to get rich later on, he's still potem milashalem. This sounds like a corporation. That there's no personal liability. He'll be a millionaire. Doesn't matter. He still says it's us. Enough in a rivosh. Hold on. So, the question is going to be, do we pass in this way, etc. Let me read you what he says. says the psak halacha. We found the Trumas Adeshen, and he quotes the Rosh. At least with the Rabbanon, it's also. Look, he writes, Hatzir hanal shel kabolas achrayas alamos ve'al hatoldos seyin tahainu schora shekona halova b'mos hu hatzir harogil aniska b'poskim shel avo b'achrayas hamala. Not the Rova poskim. It's a Rabbanon. All right, so maybe it's a Rabbanon. Maybe it's a Rabbanon. So, but he's not sure. Maybe in this kind of case it's a Daraisa. Why? Because it's like a side deal. Omeata, just at the end. I'm running out of time. What about lending to a corporation? What's the story? The Ramban and Gittin. Okay, maybe it could be made on the Ramban and Gittin, even though we don't pass in that way. And then he says in the last few pages, Hava b'chrayas hamalva. He says, listen, the Ramban is only where they have Hava mechabas suras mekach b'suya. Okay, so I give a loan, a cash loan. That's for sure not a mekach. That's also even according to the Ramban. And we don't pass like the Ramban. What about the idea, the Malva's Achrayas? L'chora b'hach alva, eina Malva mekabel olav Achrayas. Why? Shem yovdu amos o aschora shekonso achevra be'oson mos adayin chayev halova l'shalin misha nichse achevra. V'rakim yovdu kol nichse achevra poter halova milashalin. And he quotes the Rivosh. Im yovdu kol nichse halova you poter halova milashalin. Same thing over here. Same idea. Right? Nichse achevra. So what does he write? So you're saying it's a shalom and back over there. Do we follow the Rivosh? Yes? Or do we not? Even if you follow the Rivosh, there's Nisa the Rabbanon. It's the Rabbanon. Nisa the Rabbanon. Then he has something which I'm not sure is really true. We have the judge to tell us. Even there's a difference between the minig HaMekubal, Ba'avol, L'chera, B'eva, or Mekubal. The Benatzir Shalar Rivosh. Why? The Ta'amashis is true. The minig HaMekubal who Shem Hilva L'chera, B'eva, or Mekubal. I lent money to a corporation. V'chakach Ovdu Kol Nichse HaChevra. Went bankrupt. V'chakach Chozra HaChevra V'revicha Mos. They lost every penny. And now they come back to Tchias HaMesim. Harayim Mishubedes Tefroa Game Amos Shervicha Achasha Ovdu Anachosim. I don't know if what happens when the company goes bankrupt. They just have no money, or they just close the whole corporation and start a new corporation. If that's the case, it's not like the Rivosh. Hisna v'yomar shem yovdu kol nechosim shalalova yipot alovim l'sham afim yachzer v'yarviach. So then maybe we should say this back and forth. Maybe it's Ribbis Ktsutza. But he thinks, even here the Rivosh would say, it's not the Raisa, it's only the Rabbanim. Iksas nira de kenhika laloch. So he's saying that maybe considered to be a the Rabbanim. Oh. And then, after saying all this, he starts with what we saw about before. Could it be Shiba Nechasim or Shiba Naguf? Once again, he quotes the Marashag. Okay? A new idea. He says like this. He has many tinus against it. Once again, he says, the minig HaMekubal, I'm not sure if it's true anymore. Hilva l'chevra be'avor mugbal, v'avdu kol nechoseh v'chakach chosra achevra v'irvicha chayevas achevra v'nefroas ha'alvo.
So they didn't go out of business. Why not? As long as they didn't go out of business. They didn't declare bankruptcy.
No, I understand, but what does bankruptcy mean? Does bankruptcy mean?
There are different chapters, aren't there? Chapter 11, chapter 7, there are different dimensions of bankruptcy.
Yeah, but that's not what he's talking about.
Slow. The kids are quotes of Shlomo Zalman. Shlomo Zalman is already found in the Marashag. So the Mashag has two teshuvahs. I don't have time to go into the length. Maybe else some other time. The Mashag has a teshuvah in Yoredeya. Let's see where it is. The first teshuvah. That's what I have in front of me. Chelik Aleph Siman Hey. We had an earlier teshuvah. I think Siman Gimel. Let me first read Siman Gimel. The Charo could say that like this. It's not ksusa unless the shibud aguf. To call nichse alov mishubar malos halva. In a bank, yadua de meolo mishtabdu alov and l'shami beisam mimos hashutfus asher bank. Im yichle mos hashutfus konche ibredo yeoved o yeones and alov and mechuyav and klal l'shami beisam. Ela malva yafsin mosa. Lo nishtabdu l'shama chov ela mimos hashutfus asher bank. L'chora, we can say it's not Ribbis Ktsutza. Because you're going to lose everything. It's not Ribbis Ktsutza. Only that's Mishtabet Gufo Shalalova, the Shalem Achov, the Chon Chosov, a raven, that's Ktsutza. But if Gufo lo Nishtabet Klal, and Lamol Shemamokam Miyuchadu, Shenishtabet Vesulo, Efsher D'Chiagav, no Ribbis Ktsutza. Efsher. I don't have a Maramoka for this. Gidnaf Lamed. Oh. So, I'm going to stop here. I don't like it more than an hour. I'll reserve to write for next time. First, after the judge will speak before me, Mr. Hashem. So we'll see about the democratic governments, whenever you speak. And then I want to go back to this topic as well.
There's a Teshuvah, I think it's a very Sadiq test in the Rosh. It's a strange Teshuvah. The whole Chiyuv mitzvahs he thinks was only because of the Kleach HaTzibur, that they were Tzibur and they were Makabel the mitzvahs. He said, if you
that sounds like theology.
Yeah. The question I was, what about Goyim? The mention was Matzah, Kollel, Rosh, and they would have said yes, and the Tzibur also had the same Chiyuvim. So if you take that as the Yesod, then there could be other kinds of Tziburim also. He doesn't say it on Kinyonim. He certainly says there's a Kleach HaTzibur, which is not a Shutfus. That's how they can be clear for everybody to be Makayim.
Good. Well, maybe the next time. Okay, I thought I'd finish today, but not even close. All right.
It comes from Ramban, Mishpach Achirim. Ramban says, like, why is Harsinai binding on me? I wasn't there.
So what did he say?
Because Klal Yisrael is Makabel, not part of Klal Yisrael.
Klal Yisrael, right? But that's a question now. Goyim, the USA is not Klal Yisrael.
Yeah.
Ramban.
Look, hold Chazolim away. I don't want to go over time. I started late. I'm sorry, but what's our schedule?